camps. So our poor American people are quite ignorant of the depth of the crisis. A lot of people now are aware. You can't help but, reality goes bump in the night. You can barely afford to fill up your gas tank. The price of milk is now over $5 a gallon. The airlines are collapsing.
Completely.
Today Northwest announced 2,500 layoffs, and the CEOs from the 12 major U.S. airlines have called for action against speculators on the oil price. How do you like that? Crandall, the former head of American Airlines, who was the main supporter of deregulation, is now saying it's gone too far, we have to re-regulate. If this keeps up, Evan, there are going to be a whole lot of people who are going to be accused of sounding a lot like Lyndon LaRouche.
Looking at Obama for a second, he voted for the FISA bill giving immunities to telecoms. Are we just really starting to learn about him? Who is in the background? You talked about the University of Chicago. Who is in the background having him make these kind of decisions? And what worth is it? The Democrats, they didn't do anything about impeachment. They're not doing anything about energy. And they're giving FISA and our intelligence networks carte blanche.
To wiretap everyone, yeah.
Carte blanche.
Well, look, the FISA thing is an important example. Obama said he's voting for this because you couldn't get a better bill. Well, aren't there certain principles you fight for? And I can remember I've been talking to Obama supporters and so-called progressives in California and Texas and Colorado who just say to me, well, we really have to try this bipartisanship. And I said, how can you be bipartisan with an administration that lied to get us into a war, that cuts children's health care programs by saying it's necessary? How do you come up with bipartisanship on that? How can you be bipartisan on the appointment of Alito and Roberts, who are joining Scalia to turn the Supreme Court into a rubber stamp for fascism?
Right.
Sometimes you have to fight. Now, I think the American people are willing to fight. They're looking for someone who will fight. A lot of people are getting fed up. And if you look at what happened after starting on March 4th with Texas and Ohio, Hillary Clinton got 54% of the votes in all the primaries after March 4th. Now, at the same time, every single news media, which, by the way, are controlled by these same globalist corporations, kept saying, when will she drop out and give Obama the nomination?
Right.
So there was something, if you thought there was something fishy, you're right, and now you're seeing it on this FISA vote.
KPFK, 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara. On the line, Harley Schlanger. He is the Western States spokesman for the LaRouche organization. You can find their website at www.larouchepac.com and LaRouchePub.com. So much information from this institution. We're doing a whirlwind, looking at a number of points because we can with Harley. He is there and has his finger on so many pulses out there. It's incredible. So stay tuned and we'll get an 800 number because they always have such great information for you right after this break. So stay tuned. As a legislative procedure and force it down people's throats. But Ireland put it to vote to the people, and they voted down this treaty. What's this mean for the world and the further consolidation and building of the bureaucracy of the New World Order?
Well, every once in a while, democracy has a very good answer to totalitarianism, and the Irish vote is such an example. Most Americans have no idea what the Lisbon Treaty is, but don't feel bad. Hardly any Europeans know what it is. It was drafted in an intentionally obtuse form so that even the people supporting it say, look, we don't know everything that it says, but we know it's necessary. Now, what it would do would be to subordinate every decision by national governments in Europe to a European bureaucracy centered in Brussels. But even worse, the two sticking points for the Irish, one is the control of the economy by the European Union and the European Central Bank, which means the Irish would have almost no say over their economy, which is now going south very quickly. And secondly, the EU is being militarized as NATO is being expanded, with the idea being that Irish young lads and lassies could be drafted into a European army and sent off to wars that the people in Ireland don't support. And so it was on that basis the Irish voted almost 54% against it. As you pointed out, Eben, it's the only country among the 27 states of Europe that had a vote for the people. The great exercise in democracy was not put to the people in any country but Ireland, and it lost in Ireland. So what this means is that we're now beginning to see a potential for a rebellion in Europe against free trade. Now, two interesting developments at the G7 meeting or G8 meeting that just took place in Japan. The Prime Minister of Italy, who himself is not a very good guy, Berlusconi, nevertheless, he was reading from a script drafted by his finance minister, Giulio Tremonti. And here's something that your listeners will find interesting. Tremonti has appeared on several occasions sharing a podium with Lyndon LaRouche, endorsing LaRouche's call publicly for a new Bretton Woods. Tremonti is the one who's leading the fight in the European Union to put regulations against speculation in food and oil deliveries. And Berlusconi brought those things up at the G8 summit. For the most part, the media has been properly and roundly criticizing the leaders who at a time when starvation is making a comeback in the world, they were sitting there over 15-course dinners. But the Italians brought up some reality. There are revolts by taxi drivers, truckers, fishermen all over Europe. There's a huge battle emerging. And the problem is that Europe, the states of Europe, don't have the power to break this. They're looking to the United States, and ironically, increasingly, to three countries that LaRouche has identified as the wild cards that could actually act to bring about a new monetary system, namely Russia, China, and India. And so LaRouche has just written a paper which is now being studied by top people in Russia on the potential for the Russians to develop as a leadership in the world for moving to this new financial system. Russia's benefit right now is that they have a lot of oil, so they're rather flush, as are the Chinese from selling goods to us. And so you have a potential from those countries to move towards something new. The point is, it really wouldn't work without the United States. Now, Bush is not going to do it. I saw something funny this morning. Someone asked Bush what he thought of Medvedev, the new Russian president, and he said he's very smart. And then they said, well, how do you know that? And he said, well, he speaks fluent Russian.
Get out.
Actually, Bush didn't say that, but he could have. He could have said it. So we've got a president who has just gotten smaller and smaller and smaller by the year. The problem is he's destroying the United States, and he's doing it with Cheney and Schultz feeding him the program. So the potential that comes out of Europe in Ireland, it shows that people will fight when the mission is clear. In this country, the huge turnout in the primaries, and everyone credits it all to Obama, I would say it was actually Obama and Hillary and Bush who led to the turnout. So many Americans are disgusted by what they've seen in our nation.
Absolutely.
That we had over 36 million Democrats turn out in primaries.
Yes.
It's a huge increase. In Texas, it was almost 3 million people who voted. And so it shows there's a potential there for change. The problem is people don't know what the issues are. They're hoping someone has some idea of what to do with the oil price or what to do with jobs. And unless you really study, unless you understand how we got here, and we got here because of a 40-year commitment to wipe out the approach that we took to get out of the last depression by President Franklin Roosevelt, with regulating banks, regulating utilities, large-scale investment in infrastructure and science, things such as the Oak Ridge Project, the Manhattan Project. Some of this was revived by John Kennedy with the investment tax credit plan to try to provide money